Good afternoon, everyone. Andy Jacob here with DotCom Magazine. I am very honored and delighted to welcome a very important person to our show today. Mr. Sun E, the CEO of Night Owl Interactive, is joining us. And for those of you that don't know about Night Owl Interactive, they're an interactive company that has some very strong and powerful clients under their umbrella, and they are just doing a phenomenal job for those clients as one of the leading interactive companies probably in America and maybe even internationally. So, Sun, it's so nice to have you come on board today to talk to us.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks, Andy.
You're welcome, Sun. So, Sun, at a high level, if we pull the lens back to 30,000 feet, tell us a little bit about Night Owl Interactive and what your expertise and specialty is for your clients.
Sure. So, Night Owl Interactive, we started out as a digital agency. We mainly focus on websites, basically copywriting, web design. Recently, we've been trying to get into kind of the personal branding space with the whole rise of a lot of like influencers and personal brands. That's about it.
Well, that's great, Sun. That's great. So you've got a team. I know that you're coming to us by way of New York right now. For Night Owl Interactive, is your specialty getting people, startups online or existing businesses or enterprise businesses? Who's your specialty customer right now? Or do you work across all of the different platforms for everybody, depending on where they are in their business model right now?
Yeah, sure. So we started about 10 years ago, and during that time, there were a lot of startups. So we used to work with a lot of tech startups. So we worked with Spotify. We worked with a few other kind of app startups. And then, we were pretty much working with any type of company, right? So we didn't really have a niche. But what I found is that when you don't have a niche, nobody sees you as an expert in anything, right? So even though we have worked with some large clients, like we work with American Red Cross, we work with Columbia University Medical Center, Seiko, but we were never able to kind of like put our ground as an expert in something. So about like 4 or 5 years ago, we worked with kind of a motivational speaker. Her name is Gabby Bernstein. And I didn't know like how big she was at the time. And since then, she's gotten really big. And since then, we've had a lot of kind of people asking us to build their website, personal brands, authors, motivational speakers, things like that. So since then, we've worked with Mel Robbins, Jay Shetty, and we've kind of niched down on that space of working with personal brands. I personally believe that personal brands are kind of the future of branding. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at now.
That's most awesome. So, Sun, let's focus in and let's tighten up our focus on personal branding types of websites and interactive media. So, when you're looking and talking to a prospective client, what's the thing that you're trying to grasp from them so that you can try and attempt to get that across on the work that you're doing on their website or other properties that you're working on? What are you trying to get across from these experts?
So with personal brands, the most important thing is the story. That's kind of what makes and personal brand you don't have to be a motivational speaker to be a personal brand. We have a lot of ex-CEOs who now let's say, wrote a book or something like that want to kind of build their own personal brand. So the most important thing is their story, right? Like their hero's journey. Why are they doing what they're doing now? Why is it that they've given up a position as a CEO in Fortune 500 company in order to help other people, right? So that's kind of like the number one thing I try to get from them. The second thing is, what is the main thing that they're teaching? So majority of personal brands, they have a mission. They have a mission that they want to change the world in, one way or another. So what is that mission? That's kind of the second thing I get. And then from having a long conversation, we have a pretty long strategic session in the beginning of our projects. We try to find out what their ultimate product is. Not all of them have a product when they first come to us. So sometimes we have to work with them. It could be, like Mel Robbins is somebody who does. At the time, she did a lot of speaking engagements. So like companies, sales team, companies will hire her to do this huge keynote speaking. She would speak in front of like 50,000, 100,000 people. On the other hand, we have clients like Gabby Bernstein, who's mostly, she's selling courses, right? Workshops, courses, masterclass, things like that. She also writes books. So I guess that's kind of the second thing. What are the products that they're eventually trying to sell? Yeah.
So, Sun, that makes a lot of sense. So you get to actually spend time with and meet with a lot of very high-level CEO, C-level executives and motivational speakers and business coaches. So I would imagine that not only are you able to bring Night Owl Interactive's expertise to the table, but it must be fun talking to these types of people and actually probably learning something from them as well in this symbiotic type relationship for your own business.
Yeah, exactly. So I learn, I guess I'm supposed to be the expert in marketing and branding, but I learn from them just as much as they learn from me. So you're absolutely right. It's a very kind of a two-way relationship.
So that's a great thing. So when you're in business, not only are you helping other people, but because of the type of people that you've decided to focus in on as one of your core competencies, you get to learn from them as well. And I bet it's exciting being around these types of powerfully motivated and high energy and very intelligent people for you and your staff, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty much their biggest fan. I'm always motivated and inspired by them, and that's kind of what keeps me going.
And that's awesome.
To give you a story, when I first started my company 10 years ago, we grew pretty fast. Like within the first 3 years, we went from 0 to 22 employees. And I felt like I was kind of just growing, kind of swimming in the middle of the ocean, just to kind of realize why am I doing this, right? So I kind of hit that moment of I honestly dreaded coming to work in my own company, 3 years into it, because I felt like I wasn't doing what I love, right? I got into this because I wanted to make websites, because I wanted to do marketing and creative work. And all I was doing was just managing people and managing clients. And then when Gabby kind of walked into our office and we started working with her, she totally inspired me. She just, when I work with a large clients, usually I'm dealing with their marketing manager, marketing directors. A lot of them, to them, it's a 9-to-5 job, right? They're just doing their job and they don't really have kind of a personal stake in the project or passion. But with Gabby, it was her personal brand.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of fun working on that project, and I just found it so inspirational that, which is one of the reasons why we kind of switched. So yeah, I'm totally motivated by them.
That's super. That's super. And you can see in your energy and your smile and the way you talk about it with your passion that you really love this, Sun, very much. Now, you mentioned something about a hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very interesting. So you try and get your client's hero's journey across sort of the web page, if you will, so that people coming to the web page understand what this hero's journey is. Can you share with us one hero's journey that you especially like and enjoy?
Yeah, sure. I think a great one is, I have a client, his name is Michael Brody Waite, and He was a Inc. 500 CEO and a TED Talk speaker. He actually used to be a drug addict. So kind of the story that we have on his website is that, so the way we kind of structure a story is first we have to start with some sort of a headline, something that'll catch their attention. And then we have to go into a problem, right? What is the at the end of the day, the audience is not going to resonate unless they feel like they have a problem to solve and that we can solve them. So what is the kind of struggle that they have? And then what is the solution? And then how our product or our brand fits into that solution, followed by, kind of social validation, that type of stuff, and then call to action. So for him, the hero's journey was that he was an addict. He was lying all the time. And he went through a 12-step program where when you go through a 12-step program, one of the biggest things in 12-step program is to not lie, right? To be authentic, to be rigorously authentic. So the story that we tell is after the program, he went to get a job. And in that first job, he wanted to know whether he should tell them that he was an addict. That's why he has a gap in his resume or not, right? And obviously his sponsor said, yeah, you have to tell the truth. And so he went in, he told the truth, and surprisingly, he got the job. And kind of he's had a series of these type of stories that made him into, they gave him 7 straight promotions throughout 7 years, and eventually started a successful business, an Inc. 500 business, which he sold. And then he's also built 2 other businesses after that. So we talk about that part of his story, and his entire mission is to help people live mask-free, live authentically. So
see, that's wonderful, son. And I would imagine that people that reach out to you, everybody has what we're calling, or you're calling, a hero's story. Mm-hmm. And it takes someone like Son, who has this expertise sometimes, to bring that hero's story out and then hear the story and then craft the story into a way that people coming to the website can connect to that story, which then helps them take the next action step to possibly reach out to the person whose website they're on to make a connection so that they can learn more about what that person offers by reading first the hero's story, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, most of them already has a story. Most people I found is not a very good storyteller, but almost everybody has a story, right?
So this is actually hits the nail right on the head, because everybody has a story. But as Son says, sometimes it takes an expert to pull that story out and structure it in a way that makes sense for other people to understand the story so it connects with their emotions. Exactly. Right? Exactly. And you're an expert.
And that's my job, basically. My job, yeah, I would say that's majority of my job, to determine what part of their story is kind of the turning point, the climax, things like that, and how it relates to the product or the service that the company provides, because the story has to match that. But another part is most people, when they tell a story, especially about themselves, they're not very authentic. They're not very genuine. They want to craft the story in a way that makes themselves good. But what I found is that actually doesn't resonate with the everyday audience. The audience actually wants to see your failures. They want to see your vulnerability. Because if somebody that's, perfect tells a story, from the audience point of view, when I look at that story, I'm like, oh yeah, he can do it because he's perfect. But that I'm not going to be able to do. That is not going to solve my problem, right? But as soon as you tell that kind of vulnerability, have a little bit of vulnerability in your story, that's when the audience is going to relate to that story and say, yeah, I can see myself in that person, you know.
I love that. You know, I'm actually thinking about that for myself in my own life on how perhaps I could even be a little bit more vulnerable in my story to make my story come across and resonate with the people that are hearing it. And I appreciate that, those words of wisdom. Do you recommend for personal branding, Son, that when you tell your story to other people or you meet them at a seminar or a conference, that you show some of that vulnerability while you're sort of telling them about yourself? Is that a wise thing to do?
Definitely. I even do that with my clients, actually. So the first time I meet with the client for the initial meeting, most people, unless you're like Brene Brown or something, right? Most people are not going to be vulnerable to start with. Most people are going to have some sort of a wall up. So what I usually do is I'll first tell them an embarrassing story about myself. I'll tell them about my shortcomings. I'll tell them about my weakness. And usually what that does is it gets the clients to open up and say something like, oh yeah, I do that all the time too, right? Then now that kind of wall is down and we can have authentic conversation. And a lot of times I find that actually helpful also, because for me to tell their story, they have to be honest with me, right? So it's kind of like that. We have to have that trust first before I know how to tell that story to others. But yeah, I would definitely recommend being vulnerable and totally authentic in front of audience.
Son, that definitely resonates with me, because I hear a lot of people sort of craft their pitch, their personal branding pitch, where everything, if you listen to it, they've led a perfect business life. And we know that there's no such thing. And oftentimes people who become very successful in business, they have a very interesting story where they skinned their knees along the way, or they had some problems, or maybe they got a little lucky, but they never mentioned that in their personal pitch. And I think what I'm hearing from you is to be a little vulnerable in that pitch makes a lot of sense and goes a long way.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in a pitch.
That's great. That's great. Now, do you also recommend that, Son, besides just, interactively, digitally, let's say on the websites and things like that, you also recommend that when people are talking in person, which we just kind of hashed out a little bit. So when you're crafting this story, is it you and a team that craft the story over at Night Owl, or are you the guy that they get to talk to and craft that original story with?
So I'm the person in our team. So our team is made up of, we're a pretty small team. And I don't know if you checked out our website, but we've purposely kept it that way. So after that 3-year mark where I had that dilemma, we spent the next 3 years kind of downsizing the team, because I found out that I'm not the type of entrepreneur that wants to build a big business, manage teams. There are entrepreneurs out there that's their talent, right? Managing team, managing projects. But my talent is actually in the actual creative part. So we kind of scale down the team, and our team has experts. We have people that are just designers, people that are just developers, people that are just, producing videos. So I'm the person that is kind of like the storyteller / copywriter, and we have other people that does other creative aspects of it.
So that's excellent. So you get to do what you love. You had somebody who was a client of yours that actually helped you focus in on the thing that really gets you going in the morning. Mm-hmm. And then you were able to effectuate that person's analysis of you, and you decided that for your business, the best way to go is to tighten up the team, which would allow you to do what you love. And when you do what you love, that shines through in the work that you do.
Exactly. Beautiful. And I see a lot of, so recently, about 3 months ago, because of this whole COVID thing, I've started to work on my own personal brand. So I went on Instagram to start sharing content, and since then I've had a lot of like young creative entrepreneurs reach out to me, and I see this actually very often, this question where a lot of creative entrepreneurs actually struggle with that, because when you're a designer, right, when you're a copywriter, when you're actually the person that's doing the creative work and their business starts growing, at some point they have to make a decision. They have to make a decision on, am I going to be a businessman or am I going to be a creative person, right? And
Yeah.
if you are going to be a creative person, I guess one thing you can do is kind of like me, where you just double down on that and keep your team small to do large scale projects so you can still grow in terms of your revenue. But, or another option is, I guess, get a partner who's a business person who can run that business. Yeah.
So that's great advice for our people watching. Sometimes art does meet business, and then those people at that juncture need to decide how they want to handle it. If they want to build something different than just being the artistic part of their world, you're advising that they could bring a business expert in to grow the business part of their business while they get to still focus in on the thing they love. And that's very sage advice.
Exactly.
So, Sun, there's going to be a lot of people watching the show that are going to say to themselves, you know, I really like what Sun has to say. It resonates with me. I think I have a hero story. I definitely know that there's some vulnerabilities perhaps that I need to expose based on Sun's sage advice, that's always a good thing to do so that people can connect with you on a more personal level. So if people want to talk to you and connect with you, how do they get a hold of you? Is it right through Night Owl Interactive, or how do people get a hold of you? Because I would imagine people are going to want to reach out to learn more about what you do and understand how your expertise can help them.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, for people that are, you know, possible clients, they'll reach out to us through Night Owl Interactive, our website, nightowlinteractive.com. In terms of the storytelling part, because I saw that there's a lot of people that are asking for kind of this type of content on how to do storytelling, how to write copy and things like that, which is why I started my own Instagram account. It's at sun.e. And there I share, all of my content is around storytelling, copywriting, building personal brands, things along that line. So
that's awesome.
I have tons of content.
We will definitely link to the Instagram account, but what's the name on the Instagram account?
It's at sun, S-U-N, .y-i.
Okay, and that's Sunny. Sunny, yeah. Easy to remember. Sun, it's a delight to have you on the show. Actually, you know, I love doing these interviews because I get to interview so many people that really have an interesting outlook and are very smart with the way they approach things. And I think this idea that you believe that the future is on this personal marketing is really cutting edge and really something that a lot of people need to start thinking about, how they personally brand themselves, because in this world, that's more important than anything. So for anyone watching this, Sun's available. His company is in New York. He's got a very wonderful team, and you get to talk to the master himself about the personal hero story in Sunny. So I want to thank you very much for coming on the show today and imparting your wisdom. And it's great to meet you. And I really look forward to talking to you more about all of this personal branding expertise that you have. So thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Andy.